There are plenty of video games which inadvertently have a few bad elements here and there. Every now and then, though, terrible video games are created that have nothing but bad features. This video will explore games which both critics and gamers agree are the absolute worst Genesis titles. Can you guess which games belong on this list? This is Super Game Ghost, and you're watching the top 10 worst rated Genesis games. Let's start.
Number 10.
Beast Wrestler is a fighting game released in 1991. In this game you play as a genetically engineered monster who must wrestle other monsters in a futuristic WWE style arena. Sounds like a fever dream. Defeating monsters in the arena wins you prize money, which you can then use to upgrade your monster. Let's meet some of your opponents. There's Federico, Hack004, Airhole, and I can't say that on YouTube. The controls in Beast Wrestler are sloppy, and executing any move usually requires extensive button mashing. The sound effects and music are just bland and boring. Some of the monster sprites look kind of cool, but they are not without their graphical issues. According to Moby Games, Beast Wrestler's average review score is 4.8 out of 10.
Number 9.
Back to the Future Part 3 is a video game adaptation of the third installment of the popular Back to the Future film series. The game was released in 1991, coinciding with the release of the film. Oh man, calling this game a hack job would actually be an insult to hack jobs. Don't try to fix your brightness setting. This is actually how the game was released. This game features some of the most difficult and annoying stages ever created for a video game. What's more, it only has 4 stages, and someone who has mastered the game can probably finish the entire game in about 5 to 10 minutes. The first stage was probably the last stage most people played. This stage is super difficult. The only way I was able to beat it was by constantly pausing the game in order to slow down all the stuff being thrown at you. The second stage is a shooting gallery style game, and after numerous attempts I just gave up on figuring out how to progress. This game is really not worth anyone's time, so just avoid it at all costs. Back to the Future's average review score is 4.8 out of 10.
Number 8.
Heavy Nova is a platforming/fighting game released in 1992. In this title you play as a giant remote-controlled robot who must defeat other giant robots known as dolls. Each stage features an introductory platforming level which you must bypass in order to get to a boss. Spoiler alert, every boss, save for the first one, looks completely identical to the player's robot. Going through each stage allows you to unlock a huge list of new moves that you can use to fight each boss. The problem is that there's no way to find out what the inputs for these moves are within the actual game. What's worse is that the controls for this game are about as fluid as sandpaper. Bosses, however, have no trouble moving around and will destroy a robot in mere seconds. Awesome. Does it get any worse? Yup. Your robot has an energy gauge, and when it goes down to 3 energy bars, you will not be able to attack or do anything at all. What a well-designed game. Heavy Nova's average review score is also a 4.8 out of 10.
Number 7.
Rise of the Robots is a fighting game released in 1995. In Rise of the Robots, you play as a cyborg who must fight other cyborgs to stop them from taking over something or other. The game features a single-player campaign and a versus mode. Unlike most of the other games on this list, this game's story mode is relatively easy to complete. The campaign mode features a total of 6 enemies you must defeat. The first opponent you must face is a forklift. As you breeze through the other robots, you come across the last boss. Oh no! The developer of Rise of the Robots had boasted about its advanced AI system prior to the release of their game. This is probably going to be a really tough boss. As one might guess after playing this game for a few minutes, the amount of moves you are able to use are very limited. 2-player mode is especially flawed since only the second player is able to choose between the 6 enemy robots, while the first player is stuck using the main character. This game is a ridiculously incomplete mess. Rise of the Robots' average review score is 4.7 out of 10.
Number 6.
American Gladiators is a sports game released in 1993. The game was marketed like this: American Gladiators faithfully recreates the action-packed competition of the TV show, where contestants, known as contenders, compete against American Gladiators in a series of physical challenges and events. In reality, this game is really just a series of 6 poorly designed minigames. The common theme in these minigames is that you have to button mash, a lot. You have to button mash until your freaking hand goes numb. There are no real explanations in-game on how to win at any of these minigames, so really you just have to wing it. Also, the graphics are horrendous and there's like one song that plays throughout the entirety of the game. I honestly think that the only interesting feature in this game is that you are able to pause the game on any screen, even menu and loading screens. American Gladiators' average review score is 4.7 out of 10.
Number 5.
Barney's Hide and Seek game is an adventure game. It was released exclusively for the Genesis in 1993. In this game, you play as every kid's favorite purple dinosaur. The game consists of 4 levels in which you have to find Barney's friends and other items. This game is actually not that bad. The demographic for this was obviously children, so I don't know what reviewers really expected out of this. The game was designed for children in mind, so the gaming experience is really just simplified and streamlined. The levels are very colorful and easy to navigate, while the control scheme is also not hard to figure out. The only real issue with this game is its subpar sound. Barney's Hide and Seek game's average review score is 4.5 out of 10.
Number 4.
Instruments of Chaos starring young Indiana Jones is an action platformer. It was released exclusively for the Genesis in 1994. This game follows the young Indiana Jones as he goes off on a covert mission to stop German spies from stealing advanced weapons technologies. This has got to be one of the most unforgivingly difficult and anger-inducing games ever released. The most annoying thing about this game is how Indiana gets knocked back from literally anything touching him. It becomes almost entirely impossible to play the game when you're being tossed around infinitely by a group of enemies. Enemies ganging up on you is also pretty common in this game. The levels are all super repetitive, long, and most will have some mechanic that will force you back to the very beginning of the level. The bosses at the end of each stage will fly around all over the place and ignore collision and the physics of the game. I believe that this game was really just created for the sole purpose of pissing people off. Indiana Jones's average review score is 4.3 out of 10.
Number 3.
Sword of Sedan is a hack-and-slash video game released in 1990. In Sword of Sedan, you play as either a male or female warrior. You must progress through 11 levels in order to get to the final boss. Let's keep this short because there really isn't too much to say about this game. Turning is extra difficult in this game for whatever reason. Potions you acquire from enemies do hardly anything, and really the game is just aesthetically ugly and boring. Sword of Sedan's average review score is 4 out of 10.
Number 2.
Action 52 is a compilation of various minigames that was released in 1993. It was originally released for the NES. Why make one decent game when you can make 52 bad minigames? This was probably the premise behind this compilation of trash. This game has been covered extensively throughout the years and is a regular entry into worst games lists. Judging from the graphics and sound, one could easily tell that this game comes from the previous console generation. The minigames are all very simplistic and really don't belong anywhere on a 16-bit card. Most of the minigames featured in Action 52 follow the same format. Completing one level progresses you to a completely identical level with a higher difficulty. Many of the games on here are copies of each other and much of the soundtrack is recycled throughout. Action 52's average review score is 3.9 out of 10.
Number 1.
And the worst rated game for the Sega Genesis is Dark Castle. Dark Castle was released for the Genesis in 1991. This platforming video game was originally released in 1986 for the Mac. The Mac version of this game was actually well liked and got decent reviews back in 1986. So what could actually go wrong with releasing a 5-year-old game onto a new console with little to no improvements? The game just looks and feels extremely dated. The controls which were meant for the keyboard just don't translate well to a console's controller. The underwhelming graphics were obviously meant for previous generations, and the sound design and infinite loop of box, toccata, and fugue are just irritating. Porting a game that runs at a snail's pace onto a console whose flagship title is the speedy hero Sonic just doesn't make any sense at all. Dark Castle's average review score for the Genesis is 3.8 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe.